our next caller, SR.
Heck yeah, man. What we got?
Sweet. We're going to jump back to Robin. Robin, were you able to get your prescription?
Yes, I'm so sorry about that. I had this timed out properly, and then, I was like at the pharmacy, and they're like, well, it's not ready yet. So then I had to sit and be like, oh, crap, I'm just going to run into this. So,
No problem. How you doing?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I am doing good, thank you. So, the important question of the day, why do you believe in God?
Yeah, so, well, first off, I guess I should state a little bit about my background and what I actually do think. So first and foremost, I was listening to that last caller, and I hope this doesn't come across as insulting, but I think that his evidence is largely very anecdotal, and I find that greatly insufficient. I don't think that's a reason to believe. It's just based on a personal story. You have to have something deeper than that. So I came from a background of being very atheist. My whole life, I used to watch shows like this. Like there's Atheist Experience in Houston that I used to love. And I was involved in a lot of secular organizations. So I was, I'm very familiar with the common atheist arguments for things. And I do believe a lot of them do make sense. So what I had to do was to overcome that, go through and reevaluate all those things. So I don't know if you guys are familiar with like the quadrants of beliefs. So there's like Gnostic Christians, agnostic Christians, XYZ.
Yes.
Same with atheism. There's Gnostic and agnostic atheism. I guess I would define myself as an agnostic Christian, just simply because like I do believe, but I can't claim to know with 100% certainty. And I think that people that think that they can are probably lying to themselves.
I love your honesty right now.
Thanks. No, I don't mean to come across as harsh. I feel like that's what I'm sounding like. But,
No. No, you're doing great.
So, I lived my life as an atheist. I was recently saved this past year and a half ago about. And part of the reason was I met my partner that I'm currently with. And he's the only person I knew that could ever give me an argument that made me actually change my mind a little bit. I mean, it took months of reevaluating to actually come to a conclusion, but he was the one who kind of opened the door. He's a chemist and everything, and so he's got a lot of scientific background just like I do. So I approach things very scientifically, and you have to give me some good evidence to think about something. So based on that, the basic premise I guess I would start to talk about is the definition of what God actually is. Are you guys familiar with the definition of the Hebrew word Yahweh, the actual definition for it?
I've got some knowledge, but if you can break it down in 5 seconds, I think everybody would appreciate it.
Oh yeah, no, it's super quick. Yeah, Yahweh basically in English means I am. That's all it means is I am.
I did not know that.
And that's all it means is I am. It doesn't mean anything special. That's just what Yahweh means. So if you think about that, what does I am mean? Well, that means order. That means simply what exists. It is the order that everything subjects itself to, all matter, all X, Y, Z, and the other. Basic laws of physics. I am what it is, the substance of what it is. And so, and feel free to cut me off whenever, because I'll go on. I'll just ramble until you guys.
Okay.
I've got a lot on this conversation could go a gajillion directions. So, just whatever. And so based on that. The other argument that kind of goes along with that is that I forget the name of the actual theorist that came up with the argument, but everything has a beginning. I think that we can agree on, at least largely based on what we know about the universe. It definitely has a beginning. You can look at lunar trails and things like that. We know that it does have a beginning. It's not always existed the way that it has. And everything that has a beginning has a cause, and that cause has to be external to itself. The thing cannot create itself from itself. So that doesn't necessarily prove God, but that's saying, okay, we have a cause and it's something external to the system that we are looking at. So if you look at, for example, we see a car on the street, we know that the car did not create itself. The matter itself did not just self-create. It has a cause external to that.
It sounds, Robin, it sounds like, just to jump in, it sounds like you're kind of going a cosmological route. Maybe not exactly the kalam itself.
Not exactly.
But
not
even
exactly.
Yeah, but a standard cosmological argument that's been spoken about since the 14th century, I think, is when Al-Ghazali first wrote it down. Argument that's been spoken about for.
Oops, sorry about that. I accidentally looped the audio into itself.
That's okay. But is that kind of where you're going with this second kind of understanding here?
Sort of.
Okay.
A little bit. This is more so. I'm saying it only because it's the premise to everything else that I say. So it's just like setting a baseline for what I think. It's not, the end all be all of itself, because I think that'd be kind of boring. But you want me to continue, or do you want to talk about that a little bit more?
Well, I think there is already a good bit. I mean, I could jump back to the definition, the translation of Yahweh, and so forth. But for me, I think in the cosmological argument, in the understanding of things having a beginning, I think the idea that a fallible human brain is able to really distinguish the nitty gritty of when something is a tree and is not a tree. I think that's a lot more complicated than a simple premise like that encapsulates.
It's definitely
go ahead.
far more complicated than that. It's definitely far more complicated than that. I just didn't want to, go into the nitty gritty of it. It's just kind of laying out a basic, 1 + 1 = 2 foundation of logic that I think most people agree with, and then you can extrapolate from there. So,
do you think there's do you think there's any problem with just waiting to see if a large enough people agree on something that's kind of basic but is actually more deeply complex, and then just moving on? Do you think maybe there's potentially some shakiness with the understanding there? If I said well, all birds fly, right? I mean, you agree, right? Most people do, right? All birds fly. Birds fly.
No, they don't. All birds don't fly. They don't.
Oh, so there's some more nuance, right? There's some more complexity that maybe.
There is nuance. There's definitely nuance. Yeah.
So if
well, that was what I'm. Yeah. Sorry.
No. Go ahead. Go ahead. This is you calling us. So.
Okay. Well, yeah. So yeah, there's obviously a lot more complexity. I was just laying out a foundation, from which me coming from the atheist perspective, what kind of opened the door to think about it a bit more. The combination between the definition of what Yahweh actually is, what God actually is. He's not some floating mystical being out in the nether, right? It's both order in and of itself that all matter subjects itself to, as well as being the creator.
So you said
it's like if you walk into if you walk into a forest, let's say you're in a forest and you see a rubber ball, right? You look at the ball and you know that the ball didn't self-manifest. It was created. And for me, it's like, well, what got me thinking is, why does the size of the ball matter? Like, if we look at Earth, why does it, because it's so big, mean that it can't itself be created? And that's not the end-all, be-all why, I believe, but that was something that kind of got my thoughts stirring a little bit. And that kind of questioned my atheist perspective there. I was like, as an atheist, I kind of said, obviously, the universe, it's just always existed. All this matter has always existed. The order that we see is just self-created and self-manifested. I'm like, well, that doesn't actually make sense from the evidence that we see.
So it sounds like, if I may, you're giving examples of things that were created, and like a ball and a car, and because those things were created, you believe the universe was created. Is that accurate?
It's not just because of that. I'm making a very simplistic,
right.
It's, you can see something that exists, and we know, we kind of, in our brains, we say, well, the universe and the nature itself, this has always just existed. There's no way it was in any way created. It's just, it was existed when we existed, so we don't really think about it that much. Whereas if we look at something that we ourselves created, we're like, oh yeah, it totally makes sense that we created it. This thing didn't self-create. But then when we look at trees, stars, the universe, the ground around us, just because we've always existed with it doesn't mean that it itself has always existed or that it's self-created.
So Robin, do you have off the top of your head an example of something that wasn't created? Because it sounds like right now, from the understanding that I'm getting, and please, help me out here, clarify for me if I'm mistaken, but it sounds like what you're saying is that the clock was created, that we found on the beach, that was created next to the ocean, that was created next to me, that was created. And I guess what I'm confused about is, if you only have created
we need to go-
things, how do you know
Yeah.
they're created?
Well, let's go back to the definition of Yahweh again, if you will. By created, I think when atheists hear the word created, they think of it as kind of a mystic and magical thing. That's not what I think.
Okay.
Creation in itself is subject to Yahweh. I am order. Well, we're going back to that again. Order is what created it, which is, laws, nature. I believe in evolution, all that stuff, because we have, evidence of that. And so it's not like it just suddenly appeared. It formed over a large amount of time, which is subject to, the laws of nature itself. That, again, going back to that, original Hebrew definition of what God is. He didn't just, spin a wand and it appeared. It is subject to the order itself. So
it almost sounds like to me when you're using the understanding I am, it almost sounds like you're encapsulating the three fundamental laws of logic, just the A equals A is not A, and then no middle ground in there.
I mean, if something is to make sense, it can't be magical. It can't be something that isn't observable. It has to make sense logically. It can't be a magical thing that appeared, which is what some creationists kind of think. It has to actually match what we know.
So is the creator bound to those laws of logic? Could God not have created?
Yeah, or because he is himself is order, right? He's not. When people think of, I think this is going to go into the omnipotent point of view, which is where, well, if God is bound to these rules, that means that he's not truly omnipotent. Well, no, omnipotence is in itself bound to its own rules. So something's creating, if something is order in and of itself, it is bound to that order as well that is created.
I guess it seems to me like when you're using the term order in part of that sentence, it seems to me that you're giving it a different definition than the second time that you're using it in the sentence. And I could be vastly misunderstanding, but it almost
explain that to me.
It sounds like there's a period of time where the ontology of what you're calling order changes for you. There's a moment where it's a categorization, and then there's a moment where it's a definable object of some type almost. That's how it seems to me when you're using.
So I mean, again, and going back to the definition of God as being in and of itself order, it's both God and it is also the order that is created that we witness here. So God's presence on earth is the order that we witness and all the things they're subject to. Because that's literally what a God is. God is what rules over everything. But it encapsulates both.
How do we know that though?
Yeah.
We don't. That's why I'm agnostic.
Oh, yeah, you did say that.
I know that for certain. No, I don't know that for certain. I don't claim to know that for certain. To me, based on the evidence that I see in the world, that makes sense. But I can't claim to know that with all certainty. But based on what I see and based on the basic principles of logic, I'm like, okay, we can at least open the door to the rest of this, which goes into, for me, the next step of, okay, maybe there's a God, was exploring Christ. And why the Christian definition of Yahweh and order itself makes sense. Would you like to explore that a little bit, or would you like to stay on the topic of just basic premise of God?
That's up to you, Mr. Micheal.
I was just going to ask what you wanted to do.
I mean, I think honestly, now there's so much we could go for. But yeah, please, if you have a question, go.
You keep referring to an order. What do you mean by what order are you referring to?
Order, yeah. So if we look at things like basic laws of physics, they're formulations that we ourselves can identify and see that all things are subject to. So go into any physical law, any equation that you see, that we see that everything subjects itself to naturally, right? Do you think that order itself has just always existed, and those things have just always just naturally flowed into state with no start, rhyme, or reason? Or is there some sort of something behind that which we know that it didn't self-create, right? It may make more sense that there is something behind it rather than the order we know that the order itself and everything that, you know, all matter is subject to, as well as matter itself, did not always exist. We know that for a fact. And we know that
real quick,
things don't self-manifest.
sorry to interrupt, but real quick, are you able to get closer to the microphone?
Oh, yeah. Is this a little bit better?
Yes, yes, perfect.
Or I can take it off. I'm on speaker because I'm a little bit hard of hearing. The speaker is easier for me.
Oh, okay.
But if not, I can.
Yeah, if you could just talk as close to the mic as possible, that would be good. Just because at times it gets hard to hear you.
You said you have a science background, Robin. I'm just wondering what is that background, if you don't mind.
Oh, yeah. So I mean, I was top of my class in high school. I was always into science. I was valedictorian for a little bit, graduated 4 out of 800 students, and then I moved on with a full ride to University of Alabama studying microbiology. I worked in an organic chemistry lab for a little bit, and then actually moved on to nursing because I was pre-med, wanting to be a neurologist, and then decided I didn't want to quite go to school for that long. So I took the nursing route instead. So I'm currently in the pursuit of my nursing degree.
So what would you say is your best understanding when it comes to the instantiation of the universe as it exists? Like which model in physics do you think is the best one here for how the universe came to be?
Right. So if you look at, I mean, we can see the cosmic trails. So we see that the universe itself is constantly expanding. That's something that we pretty much know for a fact. And we also can see that planets have moved from a singular point in the universe, that starting point. So I guess I would say the Big Bang is what makes sense. Well,
the Big Bang isn't, if I could just jump in, and this could be a misunderstanding on my part for sure. I'm no expert. I'll very proudly claim my own ignorance here. But
same.
If I'm understanding right, the Big Bang actually isn't an understanding of how the universe really began, but more inflated.
Right.
Where do you think the Big Bang came from? Which model do you think is better in terms of the creation of our universe?
Are you talking about like going more in depth in the Big Bang itself? Because I mean, I guess I could just say I'm not an expert on the Big Bang either.
Well, no, that's okay. Neither am I, Robin. But I guess what I was trying to get at, which is something that is a theme for me in my life all the time, where I hear somebody make a pretty bold claim. I think that you've made about the beginning of the universe. I think to really, stand on any soapbox and try to express the knowledge of the creation of our universe and space-time and 12-dimensional dodecahedrons and all that crazy stuff. I'm confused why you would stand on any particular stance, because my understanding is that some of the greatest, smartest, most hardworking and educated nerds out there who really, really work on this physicsy stuff, they don't have an answer.
I don't claim to have an official, like, I don't claim to know this for 100% fact.
But you seem to be really comfortable with making some claims based on a model that it sounds like you don't know which one, and I don't know which one to pick either. I don't know which one to pick, but I think it gets very difficult if we're making really large claims about where things started or how they got here and so forth. If ultimately we don't have a good answer for that, it seems kind of difficult, 12, 13 steps down the line to really have any grounding. Does that make sense?
No, it makes sense, but you also have to understand that in our everyday life, we do this all the time. We don't have a great understanding of very many things. We operate based on basic models and theories, and they're based on what we witnessed in the world. So, I mean, for a lot of medicines and everything, too, we don't even know exactly how they work. We just see that they do work, and we see the effects of them, but we don't necessarily claim to know anything about their mechanisms. I don't claim to know anything about the mechanisms of exactly how it was done. I don't claim to know that at all. I don't think anybody really knows at this point the mechanism. It's just a basic fundamental.
The mechanism.
What I've explained before.
If I'm understanding though, it sounds like the mechanism was God. It sounds like you do make claims about the mechanism.
No, I'm not saying I make claims about the causality of what's going on. I don't claim to know the exact step by step of what everything he did, the exact intrinsics of the mechanism.
Sure.
By mechanism, I mean the conventional definition of mechanisms, at least from a scientific perspective, is the step by steps and everything that goes into it.
Right.
Not necessarily. I'm talking about the cause of the mechanism itself.
So, if we could, because we only got like a moment left before we got to move on, what if you had to simplify your most compelling reason for believing in God?
Yeah.
What is it?
For a Christian God, at least, is the history of Christ. I mean, we have 4 canonical things. Like from a historical evidence perspective, that are eyewitness testimony from our, what we can see, and that in and of itself. I mean, if Christ is true, if his story is true, and what those eyewitnesses were claiming is true, then that's pretty compelling evidence right there. If we accept that.
Can I give you some homework, Robin?
It's interesting. Yeah.
Are you sure? It's okay. It's not too much. I have way too many worthless.
Can I guess on what the homework is? Can I guess on what the homework is, though?
Can
I've
you?
probably already done it. That's the thing.
Okay. Yeah. If you can guess the author's name, the scholar's name that I'm going to point you towards as a jumping off point, I will convert right now to Christianity. I'll give you 2 tries or 3 even.
2 tries. I thought you were going to go into exploring the evidence of the canons being actual eyewitness accounts.
Nope. Looking for an author name.
The direction you're going to lead me into.
Oh, okay. Well,
so that's not that. I'm wrong.
That's okay.
I mean,
it's kind of in that vein, but there's just a really cool scholar. His name is Dennis R. MacDonald, and I've found a lot of very interesting things in his works over the years, and I think you might as well.
Okay.
Especially if you like history.
And I was sorry, go ahead.
That's it.
And then, Robin, I would love for you to call back sometime, because I would love on another occasion to discuss eyewitness testimony and the resurrection, and if we should consider that reliable.
Yeah. I've got tons of things to talk about in that terms. I've also got from my own personal experience. Again, I don't base my beliefs in anecdotal evidence, but I've got a lot of experience with demonology in my life that I've recently overcome.
Sorry, did you say demonology?
Yeah, no, encounters with the demonic.
Okay.
You need to call back about that, Robin.
Yeah, definitely. If you next week we have 2 great hosts, one former minister and the other a regular on the show. If you're free next week or any Tuesday, we're here every single week, different hosts, but would love to talk the demonology or the resurrection if you're open to it.
Yeah, that'd be great. Yeah, totally open to that.
Awesome. Well, in 1 minute or less, we can give you the last word before we let you go.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I encourage everybody to go. There's a great book called Case for Christ. I thought that was an excellent piece that helped me in my early understanding. And I also say, if you're going to start off from somewhere, it's easy to start off with the canon. So read the 4 Gospels, see what you think, explore their history, explore the reasons why all the apostles, decided to lay down their lives for an eyewitness thing that occurred to them. And yeah, that's about it. I appreciate the time.
Thank you, Robin, and I hope you have a good rest of your night.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye.
That was a good call, man. What do you think?
Yeah, it was fun. I was surprised. I didn't expect it caught me off guard a little bit when she said she used to be an atheist. I didn't know that. And then also when she had said she watched the Atheist Experience and stuff, I was not expecting that. And I did get in the beginning of the call fairly excited when she admitted that she could not claim to know their visit God, because I think that is more on an honest position to hold.
Yeah, and I don't know. I think kind of what I said earlier. a lot of times in these discussions, I feel like there's somebody saying, I have a box. I know the box is there. You see the box. You know the box is there. We can't open it. We can't see inside of it, but there's something in it. And I know what that something is. And that's always difficult for me. That was one of the biggest things that ended up making me, into the heathen sinner that I am today. Right. I kept having to finally rest my laurels on this understanding of, oh, I don't understand. And not only I don't understand, but even like, I don't think it's possible. And if I accept both of those, well, how could I accept a conclusion based on those, right? Well, I still think it was a really good call, man. I still think it was
so
lots
far
of fun.
I love that we almost always get nice callers. Like
Yeah.
if all shows could run that smoothly, that'd be awesome.
Well, it's you attract nice people, except for me, and there's one or two of the YouTube mods. I think they know who I'm talking about.
Well, I've attracted some rude people too. That's for sure.
That's a good point. There was a particular unmentionable.
There's a few unmentionables that we shouldn't even say their name to give any credence to them. So yeah, those who shall not be named.
That's right.